I wondered if you heard in the reading from Corinthians, at the very end, Paul says, when I am the weakest, that's when I know God will make me strong. Paul was not exactly a weak person. You wouldn't think he was a shrinking violet or had a weak personality. He was a pretty bright guy and very determined. And yet, there are times in his life when he felt he was completely broken down. And it was really, his way was blocked and his mission was being unsuccessful. In fact, he was really struggling with this church in Corinth. Nobody really knows if Corinth stayed with him. He started the church and he's having lots of problems. Let me tell you the background so you can read between the lines and get the picture a little better. Apparently there were competing teachers in Corinth. It was a very cosmopolitan town. There were lots of people who were trying to teach in that town. And they were criticizing Paul and wondering if he was an authentic apostle. Wondering if he was really the teacher they wanted to follow. That's why Paul says at the beginning of this little paragraph, he says, you know what? I don't mean to brag, but he kind of does. And he says, I don't mean to brag, but I've had mystical visions. I have been to the third heaven. I have seen paradise. So, in not so many words, he's saying, well, compare that to the apostles who want to teach you. I have mystical vision. What do they have? That's what he's saying. And apparently they were complaining about him as well, saying, you've had this, quote, thorn in the flesh for a long time. If you're so spiritual, how come you don't get that fixed? How come God doesn't heal you? How come God doesn't fix that problem? If you're such a super apostle, Paul. Paul says, well, you know what? I've had lots of problems in my life, and I find that when I'm weakest, well, that's when God makes me strong. So you Corinthians can just sober up. In fact, Paul had a lot of problems. Actually, for someone who was so successful in spreading Christianity all around the Mediterranean, starting all kinds of churches, his life was not what you would say a smooth road or an easy life. Which is why almost everybody here can relate to him in this way. Because not everybody here has an easy life. You remember there are some stories about Paul. It says one time he was traveling by ship in the Mediterranean. And in one of his travels, a storm came up. His ship was sunk. And he barely made it to an island. At that time, he had to be thinking, I'm not sure this is the right thing for me to do. This is not what I had planned. In the midst of the shipwreck, when he thought everything was lost, Paul could say to himself, well, when I'm weak, now God will make me strong. When I have run out, now God can fill me up. On that same trip when he was on that island shipwrecked, he was bitten by a snake that was poisonous and they thought he was going to die. Paul said, I've been shipwrecked and I should die of this poison, but now that I'm weak, now God will make me strong. I don't know how many times Paul ended up in jail. See, in his days, when he would preach in the synagogue or sometimes out in the court square, if you preached a bad sermon in those days, they didn't just shoo you along, they put you in jail. Some of you would like to do that today, probably. So he ends up in jail a number of times. When he's in jail, he says to himself, I know I'm feeling weak now, but now God will make me strong. A couple of times when Paul got in big trouble, he went before the Roman authorities because he was upsetting the town, so they tried to get the civil authorities to step in. A number of times he would have died. Instead of being killed, they just whipped him. After he was done with that, he said, I know I'm very weak, but now God can make me strong. There are times in Paul's life when he was very strong. He's a strong guy. But at his lowest points, when he ran out of his own ability, when he ran out of his own strength, he had faith that God would actually make that the strongest time in his life. When I'm weak, Paul says, now God can make me strong. It's not unlike that old poster you've seen in many churches and lots of places. The footprints on the sand. There are two footprints. When one of them runs out, the person says, God, how come you left me? And God says, no, that's when I carried you. Remember that story? Paul would say the same thing. When he was weakest and he thought he was by himself, that's when God would fill him up and carry him the rest of the way. There's actually a saying from another tradition that says, God can only fill you up when you have been poured out. You cannot fill up a half full cup. The cup must be emptied, and then God can fill the rest back up. So, with this kind of a sermon, I want to encourage you that when things seem very bad, this might be the time when they will turn, because God can now live through you in a way He couldn't before. You're at the end of your rope, so God says, I will give you more rope. I will be your rope. Your cup may feel like it's empty. God says, well, now I can fill you up with my strength. A lot of things can go wrong, or you think you're heading the wrong way in life. But there may be lots of reasons for that. Maybe God has another way, another solution to your problem. You put all your eggs in one basket and it didn't work out. Well, God may say, well, I have other eggs over here. I want you to try some other ones, okay? What you thought was the right way, I have another idea. There are better ideas than the one you had. Or maybe there's more than one right way. And God says, I know you thought this was the way you wanted to go, but I've got another way, just as good. Perhaps God would say, well, you're trying this, and it's not going to work right now. Just wait a little bit. Just wait. Keep working, and the time for you to break through and get what you want is not now. You just have to wait. Or perhaps God would say, you know what? This is a dead end for you. I need you to try a whole different direction. Maybe a whole different direction. I have a vacuum cleaner in my house. It's like a robot. You ever heard or seen, what's it called? Roomba. Like the Roomba. like the dance. And it's this little circular disc that runs around the house. And every time it bumps into something, it goes in a different direction. Sooner or later, it'll cover the whole house. Of course, with all my dogs, it has a lot of fur to pick up. But God might say that to you. He says, as soon as you bump into one in one direction, try another one. Maybe that wasn't the direction you were meant to go. It'll work. Just to give you a lighthearted example, after all those heavy ones with Paul in prison and snake bites and shipwrecks and all that, when he was at his weakest and God made him strong, let me give you a lighter illustration. I was putting together these, a blind, how Venetian blinds, those big in the window slatted things? And one of the clips that holds the valance on, the clip, little plastic clip, sits on the top, and then it attaches a long strip to it to cover up the mechanism that runs the thing. Yes. Well, with that beautiful description, I'm sure you have no idea what I'm talking about. But one of the clips had broken off, so the balance wouldn't go up anymore, wouldn't sit there. And so I said, what am I going to do? I have to do it this way. I've got to get another clip. We called around to the handyman. The guy said, I've got a whole bunch of those clips. He brought them over, and they're the wrong size. I went to the store, Home Depot, and they said, we don't carry those clips. Those are special clips for special blinds. I said, you're kidding me. Aren't the clip a clip? No, those are special clips. So he said, go to the special clip website. specialclip.com. I said, okay. I went there. I've got my clip in my hand. I've got a picture of a clip on the screen. I need to order this one. And that wasn't the right one. Then I click on the thing that says, show me all the clips. You know how many clips there are? Hundreds. And I'm trying to look at, no, sort of, not quite, not sort of, maybe, no, not that one. I said, this will never work. I'm done. Can't use the website. I can't use the Home Depot. I can't use the repairman. I don't even want to balance that bad. Who cares? It's a stupid balance. Somebody said, why don't you skip the whole clip thing and just use some Velcro? Or somebody at the last service said, why don't you just put some tape up there? I said, what a clever idea. Who would have thought of that? So when your way gets blocked, God might say, there are better ways of doing this. You don't have to do it that way. There are lots of ways of doing things. Lots of ways of doing things. When you give up, well, God might give you a better idea, a better way, another way. Open another door. So that's a very lighthearted example. But I wanted to share with you just because I wanted to echo what Paul would tell you today. He says, when you get in trouble and things aren't going your way and you have a problem you cannot solve, big or little, something dramatic or something insignificant, perhaps when you let go and surrender, say, I don't know, God, you have to help now in some way. I am weak. Now, God, you can be strong. That's what Paul said in his whole life. That's what Paul would say. That's what he does. Paul was not a weak person. But Paul could say, I am strong. And then when I come to the end of my rope and I feel weak, God is even stronger than I was before. It's like the perfect way to envision life. In the sense that you are strong, and then when you run out, God can make you stronger. You move from strength to strength. And all predicated on how you frame the situation, how you envision it. When something goes wrong, do you say, I'm done, I'm so weak, this will never happen, my way is blocked, God is gone, I'm lost? Or can you say, you know what, I'm usually strong, but now I'm at the end of my rope. God, when I'm weak, now you make me strong. When I'm weak, now you make me strong. You find the way. Paul would say, when I'm weak, that's when God makes me strong. And my grace, God's grace, is sufficient for every situation. So, as you look at your life today, everyone's got a hard life. Life is hard. And yet, Paul would say, as you go through your life, and you find the ways that get blocked, and things aren't happening the way you want them to happen, perhaps it's a time now to empty yourself and let God fill you up. Or let God carry you, and there'll be only one set of footprints on the sand for a while. You're done, so that God can take over. God can take this. What is it in your life that seems blocked right now? What is it that is not going the way at all that you want it to go? Perhaps this is the time and you can say, God, I'm done with this. I don't know what to do. I need another way. I feel weak. God, it's time for you to make me strong. God, you find another way. You find the alternate way, the better way, or the time to wait for another time. God, this is the time you are strong and I am weak. There have been a ton of times in my life where I can say, God, I am so weak now. By God's grace or God's help, He said, no, now I will show you how strong you can be and how strong I can be through you. So I wanted to offer that to you today in this sermon, that when you feel weak and blocked and defeated, now is the time God can shine through you and God can make you strong. It was true in Paul's life, repeatedly. Test it out and see if it's not true for your life. When you are weak, well, now God can make you strong. I offer this to you in God's name. God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.